All right, guys, so a few days ago, NFL.com, specifically Chad Reuters, posted their 3-round mock draft. So in today's video, I wanted to give my thoughts and reaction to the 3 picks they made in this mock. Obviously, on this channel, we follow the draft very, very heavily, doing plenty of mock drafts during the week, also looking at other mock drafts such as this. We're all about the draft here, as now the season is officially over, and we are entering that territory of new league year start in March with free agency, and then, of course, into the draft. And I really like to follow along early, especially this year more than ever, because so much is happening with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, there's so much that could change with the Packers, and it could completely change their draft and their draft strategy as well. If they were to trade Aaron Rodgers and pick up a big draft package, have multiple firsts, multiple seconds, their draft would look totally different than if Aaron Rodgers were to stay. They'd have, 1 first, 1 second, 1 third, and they draft to, go all in once again. All right, so if we go into this mock draft here, as I said, it's by Chad Reuters. He's a draft analyst on NFL.com, puts out a lot of good draft content through the offseason. So he just released his mock draft 1.0, which includes trades. Bears are involved in a lot of trades in this mock draft, and it's a 3-round mock draft. So if we get this thing started, scroll down here. The one trade that happened with the Bears is they traded out of the first round, the first overall pick. And I could definitely see that happening. I feel like that's a smart move by Chicago, because you know what teams do in order to grab their guy at quarterback, especially like someone like Houston with, new coach and DeMeco Ryans going up, grabbing their guy, getting Bryce Young here with the first overall pick. In this scenario, the Bears traded out with the Texans and only swapped back 1 pick. Doesn't make too much sense for the Texans' sake unless they thought another team was going to trade with the Bears, because the Bears likely aren't going to take a quarterback. So Bryce Young would likely fall to number 2. But if the Colts were to trade with the Bears, then they could jump the Texans and grab Bryce Young. But they trade with the Bears anyways. Once they're at 2, grab C.J. Stroud. The Cardinals go Jalen Carter, and the Bears fall back to 4 and get Will Anderson. That's honestly the best case scenario for the Chicago Bears, picking up so much draft capital and still getting someone like Will Anderson. The Panthers trade with the Seahawks at 5, jump up, grab, the 3rd quarterback on the board. Some guys have him 1, some guys have him 2, and Will Levis. Then the Lions at 6 draft Christian Gonzalez. I would say Devin Witherspoon would probably be the number 1 cornerback off the board, but again, we're so early in the draft process. Paris Johnson at 7 to the Las Vegas Raiders. If the Raiders sign Jimmy G or some other quarterback, they're going to want to protect that quarterback. Paris Johnson, likely the best lineman here in this draft. Miles Murphy goes at 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. The Seahawks traded with the Panthers, traded down, and still got Tyree Wilson, so nice trade there by the Seahawks, getting a nice edge rusher. The Eagles drafting Bijan Robinson at number 10. I could see them letting go of Miles Sanders, and honestly, I would think they would be okay with that. And getting a guy like Bijan, I don't think you need to spend a top 10 on him, but imagine adding a guy like that to that Eagles offense. Dalton Kincaid, first tight end off the board at 11. I don't know if he'll go that early, but he went to the Tennessee Titans here. Houston Texans, Kalijah Kancey at 12. Like I said in yesterday's mock, he has been flying up boards. Anthony Richardson goes to the Jets at 13. I just feel like Anthony Richardson just screams Jets for some reason. Then at pick 14, Broderick Jones goes to the New England Patriots. The Green Bay Packers are on the clock. Let's move to their pick. So in this NFL.com mock draft, pick 15, the Green Bay Packers have selected wide receiver out of Ohio State, Jackson Smith and Jigba, taking the first wide receiver off the board. A lot of people will argue Quentin Johnston is the first wide receiver, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers. There's a lot of argument, but at the end of the day, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I mean, he put together a really, really nice season in 2021. Was hurt a lot last year with that hamstring issue. The description here says Smith and Jigba is just as talented as 3 former Ohio State receivers, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, picked in the top 12 last year. Williams, of course, played his final year at Alabama. He has excellent hands and quickness/strength after the catch. If his troublesome hamstring is fully healed, I expect teams to place a high value on him. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if the Packers moved up to grab JSN or one of the top tight ends to aid whoever their quarterback might be in 2023. So if you saw my mock draft yesterday, my first ever 7-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers, that was my first overall pick. I traded back to 24 with the Jags and was still able to land Smith and Jigba. Will he fall that far? I'm not sure. The one thing, as of right now, I do believe, I do think he will be a first-round wide receiver, and I think he would be a great addition to this Packers offense, because I feel like they've been missing a true slot receiver since prime Randall Cobb, and he's obviously not that that anymore, and he's an impending free agent. Jackson Smith-Njigba is only 21 years old, 6 foot, 198 pounds. Where he wins, he's technically savvy. What's his role? He's a slot wide receiver. He ran 83% of his routes from the slot in his career. He's a sure-handed receiver. The Packers definitely need that. They had a lot of drop issues last year, and where he can prove very little. He's just a very solid wide receiver, and the only question is, what will he look like post hamstring injury, because we saw in 2021 here a 91.7 grade. He had 367 slot snaps, 46 wide snaps. So yeah, he's a slot wide receiver, and I think that would be perfect for the Packers. 95 receptions on 112 targets, 1,595 yards, 16.8 yards per reception, and 9 touchdowns. I mean, this dude was arguably the best receiver in 2021 in college football. So if he didn't get hurt in 2022 and say even had not even that great of a season, say he had, 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards, this dude is most definitely going top 12. So you're kind of projecting here, but it's not like he tore an ACL or something of that sort and you're kind of worrying. It is a hamstring injury and they do linger, but he's had a lot of time off and I think he will be ready to go, at the start of the 2023 season. And I think he would help the Packers so much, them getting a true slot receiver, one that's so talented. Then finally, I want to look over the pros and cons on PFF. For his pros, he gets it. His attention to detail is well beyond his years on sophomore tape. Carries mass in his lower half. Won't go down with arm tackles after the catch. Ultra reliable kind of receiver quarterbacks build rapport with quickly. And that's perfect for either Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love. Cons, lackluster top speed. Won't run away from safeties. Largely a ground player, limited in windows over the middle of the field, not really a jump ball threat. Played all of 60 snaps in 2022 due to hamstring issues. So we obviously saw the hamstring issues that we already talked about. Mainly a ground player, not really a jump ball guy. I mean, hey, the Packers have Christian Watson. Same with a lackluster top speed. They have Christian Watson. Having a slot guy over the middle, sure-handed on third down, it's not going to drop a ball. Really crucial to have, and I think he would work really well in this Packers offense. I love this pick. Whether or not it's Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, getting a receiver in the first round, something we haven't seen since Javon Walker. All right, now moving on to round 2 at pick 45. The Green Bay Packers select safety Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M. And I say this pretty much every single mock draft or just draft video in general about the Green Bay Packers. They have a big need at safety. And Adrian Amos, Rudy Ford, both impending free agents. They're going to be paying Adrian Amos, I think, $7.6 million, regardless if he's on the team or not. A higher cap hit than he's had ever with the Green Bay Packers, which is quite ironic. I do believe they're going to bring back one of those guys. I'm not too sure if they're going to bring back both. I think the best bet is bringing back one of them. Obviously, Darnell Savage on the roster and drafting a safety high, maybe signing another veteran free agent safety as well. And it's funny here, you see Quentin Johnson fell all the way to pick 46. He is falling on a lot of people's boards, but I'm not sure if he'll fall all the way to 46. But like we always say, we're so far out of the draft, anything can happen. As for Antonio Johnson, he has a first or second round grade, so this would be a nice selection there at 45. 6'3", 195 pounds. He's 32nd on PFF's big board, so this would be, like I said, a good pick at 45. You'd be getting high value there. Where he wins burst to close. Watching him dive into the backfield to stick running backs or receivers on screens is a thing of beauty. He routinely beats blockers to the spot. What's his role? Box/slot. Johnson was a high-level slot cornerback in his 2 seasons starting for the Aggies. There's no reason to think that can't continue in the NFL. What he can improve on plays on the football. Some of it was his role and some of it was Johnson's play style. You'd think he'd be a ball hawk with his length, but that just wasn't the case at Texas A&M. So the one thing that does worry me here with Antonio Johnson, if the Packers were to spend a high pick on him, a second-round pick on him, you want him to be able to play a deep safety role. I'm not saying that you don't want a versatile guy, because he definitely is that, but he is kind of more of a slot cornerback. He kind of projects to the slot in the NFL, and that's not a bad thing to have. But the Packers don't really have a deep safety right now. Could they move Rasul Douglas back to safety? Yes, 100%. If they were to draft this guy, they likely would do that. In 2021, an 87.4 grade. In 2022, an 81.6 grade. He had 11 coverage stops. He had 17 run stops. Passer rating of 91.2 allowed. He allowed 20 receptions on 29 targets. He had 55 tackles this year, 58 tackles last year. As we see here, 110 snaps deep, 128 in the box, and 280 slots. So he really played a lot in the slot, especially last year. Only 4 snaps from deep safety, 603 in the slot. So would someone like this really fit the Packers' need? I'm not saying he's not a good safety or not a good player, but maybe someone like Jamie Robinson would kind of fit the mold for what the Packers need. Then lastly, just go over his pros and cons. His pros, he's a very long safety with a big tackle radius. Hey, the Packers do need tacklers like this guy who can blow up screens and all of that. So that's definitely a really big plus with this guy. Burst at a standstill is elite, cranks it up hot in a hurry, knows how to find the football, so good at working around blocks out wide to do so. Kind of reminds me of like Jair whenever you see them run a bubble screen or a quick pass. It's like Jair is always there. If we have two of those guys on both sides of the field, that would be pretty deadly. As for his cons, really played only slot in his career. Exactly what I was saying. Logged 123 snaps at deep safety. As I say, it's not really projecting there in his NFL career. Flipping his hips can get a little chunky, best around the line of scrimmage. Ball production was non-existent. 1 pick and 1 pass breakup in his career. So that definitely worries me because you want more from a safety. As a deep safety, you want a guy that can cover, flip his hips well, break up passes, get interceptions. And Antonio Johnson simply isn't that. So although I see him as a good ball player, and I think he will be an excellent nickel or slot guy in the NFL, I'm just not necessarily sure it really fits the Packers' needs. So with this pick, I don't like it in that regard. I think someone like Jamie Robinson or Jordan Battle would just fit that better. Now moving on to the final pick in this NFL.com mock draft. In the 3rd round, the Packers select at pick 78, and they do select a tight end. They select Sam Laporta, tight end out of Iowa. And man, I'm not mad at this pick. I'm just mad that it's a tight end and that it's the 3rd round. I mean, this is giving me flashbacks of Jay Sternberger or really any other 3rd round pick since Morgan Burnett. I mean, the Packers have not done well at all in these 3rd rounds. So drafting a tight end here in the 3rd round, it would make me question it. And that's nothing against Sam Laporta. It's just the history of the Packers drafting tight ends and drafting in the 3rd round. And when you combine the both, like you did with Jay Sternberger, Josiah DeGuara, I mean, we've seen what we've gotten with both of those guys so far. Going over to his PFF profile, he's a 2nd or 3rd round player on PFF. He's 57 on their big board. In this mock draft, we got him at 78. So again, you're getting a good player. 6'4", 249 pounds. He's 22 years old. Laporta has the tools to be a difference maker at the position. That's who you want to take chances on at the position, which I agree with. It's just, man, it's the 3rd round and it's the Green Bay Packers where he wins yards after the catch. Laporta is one of the best college tight ends we've graded in PFF college era. In fact, his 20 broken tackles this past season were the 5th most in our 9 years of grading. So he's a good player. He's definitely a good player. What's his role? Seam threat. This is exactly what the Packers need. Laporta is going to be a weapon on seams, overs, crossers, and flat routes. His speed combined with his dynamic in space is meant for such a role where he can improve his catch point. Laporta is not a security blanket by any means. He struggles to haul in passes outside of his frame and make plays through contact. He only went 18 of 44 in contested situations over his career. So that's kind of the problem I've had with recent tight ends for the Packers, such as Robert Tonyan and some other guys. They're not really going to fight for the ball. They're not a guy that's going to moss, a small nickel corner by any means. Tonyan did do it once last year. He definitely did. But the Packers need an aggressive, contested catch tight end. Darnell Washington comes to mind. I'm not saying Sam Laporta isn't good. It's just, I feel like the Packers really have been missing that. As we see here, last year, 648 yards and a touchdown. The year before that, 670 yards and 3 touchdowns. His receiving grade was an 85.2. Yards per out run, a 2.15. 37.5% contested catch rate. 9.4% drop rate with those 6 drops. He had 83 deep yards, 2 deep catches, 6 contested catches, and 20 missed tackles for it, which was tied for 2nd with tight ends. Then finally looking at his pros and cons, says shades of Dustin Keller. Not a great comparison by any means. For the pros, electric after the catch for a tight end, 30 broken tackles on 111 catches the last 2 years. Speed to legitimately threaten the seam. He gets off the line quickly. I do love that for a tight end. Versatility to split in the slot or out wide. 65 snaps as an outside receiver last year. Also love that versatility. The Packers run 5 wide a lot and, a lot of the time put their tight end out wide. Cons, ball skills are nowhere near as reliable as you'd like from a tight end. Run routes like they're down on paper too often. Won't set up defenders with the stem. Not too great there. Strength as an inline blocker is not what you might expect from an Iowa tight end. I mean, that's a good point. These Iowa tight ends, Hawkinson, George Kittle, if you're getting a guy here, you're going to have high standards. You're like, okay, you're drafting a tight end in the middle rounds from Iowa. You expect this guy to be a beast, but who knows? So that's definitely an interesting pick. It's not that I'm against Sam Laporta. I'm just against drafting a tight end in the 3rd round. And in general, I feel like at this point in the 3rd round, Packers just either use it to trade up in the 2nd, get a better guy, or trade out. Just trade out, get 2 4th-round picks. The 4th round is where the Packers always succeed, and you're going, okay, every 4th-round lineman the Packers draft has been really, really good. I mean, you're looking at David Bakhtiari, I think TJ Lang, I think Sitton was a 5th round. The last year, Zach Tom, and there's many more. But I mean, the Packers always draft like such a good player in the 4th round, where it's the complete opposite in the 3rd round. I mean, they drafted Sean Ryan last year, and he was the only 3rd round pick in the entire draft not to see a single snap. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they're cursed in the 3rd round. So again, it's not that I'm against Sam Laporta. You know, I think he would be, you know, a great pick in the 4th round, and even better pick, obviously, in the 4th round. It's just a tight end in the 3rd round. Oh, man, it just gives me PTSD. But I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below of this mock draft. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is there other players that, you know, you're going, I think they should draft, you know, someone else over this guy? You know, I'm not too big on Antonio Johnson in the 2nd round. I'm not too happy about Sam Laporta in the 3rd, but I do like JSN in the 1st. But I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Pack Go.